My dear darling, I would climb the highest mountain for you if there was ever a slightest chance you were at the summit. My dear darling, I would travel halfway across the world for you if the wind carries your cries close enough for me to hear. And if you ever were in danger, I'll go from there to here until you have no fear. Kuma is here. Motivated by the will to protect his daughter, Kuma has arrived at Egghead and is prepared to give Saturn the ass whooping of a lifetime. But what has confused me lately is the question of how is Kuma doing all of this if Saturn disconnected his consciousness, which is his lifeline? Can someone make moves without their consciousness at the driver's seat? This is a question that has puzzled philosophers from the beginning of time, because most people consider life to exist only when it has a baseline level of consciousness that is detectable and measurable. But what if I told you that there is a measure of life that transcends consciousness and also explained the reason why Kuma is still alive? See, it's not consciousness that should be used as the absolute measure of life, it's actually willpower, or in other words, Haki. Haki is also another word for spirit. See, the spirit transcends consciousness and transcends life and death itself. Did you notice that despite Kuma's lack of consciousness, he was able to coat his fist in armament Haki? To me, this suggests that Oda is telling us that Haki or spirit is the innate measure of life that is a sign that Kuma is still alive through his Haki. I have a theory that the reason Kuma is still doing what he desires is because his Haki is stored in his original body even after death. To go even further, I believe that his Dera fruit is the catalyst that allows his Haki to retain his desires to protect Bonnie. Stick with me throughout this whole theory, and I'll explain how the connection between Haki and Dera fruits is the key towards understanding every mystery in One Piece, including why Kuma is still very much alive and well. But before we begin, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on that bell notification to look forward to the greatest One Piece series of all time. Okay, let's dive in. So why Haki? See, a great drunken dragon once said, "Haki transcends all." When I first heard that quote from Kaido, I immediately thought, wait, what does he mean by transcend all? It's important to note that he's using this quote when warning Luffy that a Dera fruit awakening is not enough to defeat him. Kaido is saying that Haki transcends even the strongest Dera fruits. But I wonder, is this an even deeper quote in the grand scheme of the whole story? If Haki transcends all, what else can it transcend? Is it possible that Haki can even transcend death? If your Haki is strong enough, can it conquer your very mortality to the point where you remain alive even beyond your physical death? I hypothesize that this is the exact phenomenon that is occurring with Kuma. His Haki remains alive beyond his consciousness. See, it all goes back to the connection of Dera fruits and Haki. Have you ever wondered why Haki can affect Dera fruits, even going as far as making intangible Logias tangible and touchable? See, it's because Dera fruits themselves have their own Haki. But it's even crazier than that. Dera fruits retain the Haki of their previous users. The most glaring example of this is actually Sabo eating the Mary no Mi. The previous user of the Mary no Mi was Ace, which was Sabo's bonded brother. But has it ever occurred to anyone that Ace's willpower is still stored in the Mary no Mi? This idea has actually already been hinted at in chapter 792. In that chapter, upon defeating Burgess, Sabo said something very interesting to Burgess. He said, "I was going to let you go, but Ace here said you deserved it." When I first read that quote, I was like, what? What exactly does he mean by that? Isn't Ace no longer here? Why then is he acting as if he personally heard Ace tell him that Burgess deserves it? I believe this is actually Oda hinting at the idea that I presented, that Dera fruit stored the desires or willpower or Haki of the previous user. Sabo did feel as if Ace was talking to him because Ace's willpower is stored in the Mary no Mi. By this very same phenomenon, I believe that Kuma's Dera fruit stores his strongest desires, namely the desire to protect Bonnie and defeat Saturn. This is especially interesting because Vegapunk on Saturn's orders deleted Kuma's consciousness entirely, or at least we thought. But what both Saturn and Vegapunk failed to take into account is that his Dera fruit would still retain some of his strongest desires. This theme of innate desires desires not being able to be controlled has been emphasized already at the beginning of Egghead. At the very beginning of Egghead, after the Mecha Shark attacked the Straw Hats, Lilith said something very important. She said that perhaps overriding primal desires is simply impossible. We are seeing this very same concept in action through Kuma in the current story. But why is the Devil Fruit so important in this equation? Well, once you eat a Devil Fruit, you and your Devil Fruit become inseparable in both mind, body, and soul. So when the Devil Fruit didn't get passed on to another body, they should have realized that Kuma has not died, at least not completely, which is why he was still able to use Haki without his consciousness. I hypothesize that not only do Devil Fruits store Haki, they can also use Haki on their own without a conscious user, because Haki is the source for all things in this world, including Devil Fruits. Take Luffy's Gear 4 for example. Have you ever wondered why exactly does Luffy's Gear 4 burn Haki? Well, it's because Devil Fruits actually utilize the user's Haki to activate certain abilities. So the more Haki you have, the more abilities you can utilize from your Devil Fruit without tiring yourself out. Devil Fruits themselves are a manifestation of Haki, which is also why they can be countered with stronger Haki. But stick with me throughout the end here, because I will reveal something groundbreaking about Kuma that all these ideas suggest. You see, it's not just any level of Haki that can transcend all. I go as far as saying that it's specifically Conqueror's Haki that can transcend all and go beyond the consciousness. This idea is actually substantiated in Wano. Do you remember that episode where Kaido one-shotted Luffy? Well, if you do, you'll also remember that even while Luffy was completely unconscious, he was able to use Conqueror's Haki to knock out some fodder. Now, at first, I just passed this off as just a cool scene, but then I thought, wait, why was Luffy able to use Conqueror's without even being fully there? Now, I believe that this suggests that Conqueror's Haki transcends consciousness. See, with enough willpower, your innate desires can be at the driver's seat of your actions without being fully conscious. We actually see this concept expressed all throughout anime. My favorite way I've seen this being expressed in anime is the Rock Lee versus Gaara fight. Remember, at the end of that fight, we get that legendary scene of Rock Lee standing up completely unconscious, just motivated by the will to fight. Oda is exploring this topic with Kuma, but on a whole new level, to the point where Kuma can fight and move and make calculated decisions completely unconscious. And of course, this is all made possible with the themes of Haki Transcending All. But to take this even further, I hypothesize that Conqueror's Haki can transcend even death, given the right conditions. This is exactly what happened with Luffy's Gear 5th. Luffy did indeed die on the rooftop, but somehow he came back to life. But interestingly enough, we can test out this theory with Luffy's death. It's possible that Luffy's Haki was stored through his Devil Fruit before he died. So upon awakening his Devil Fruit, he was revived with the Haki his Devil Fruit gave back to him. I also believe this is what happens when Luffy restarts his heart. He actually borrows Nika's Haki to fuel his own. This makes even more sense when we consider that upon Luffy's awakening, his Haki wave was so powerful he split the skies by himself. But we all know Luffy was never able to do a feat of such caliber. See, Conqueror's Haki can quite literally transcend all, and with the use of a Devil Fruit, it can even transcend death given the right conditions. This is exactly what's happening with Kuma now and what's allowing him to put the beats on Saturn. But with all this being said, I wonder what other mysteries does the concept of Haki Transcending All explain? What else in the One Piece world has Haki without fully being conscious? The first thing that comes to mind is actually swords like Enma, who can suck out your Haki. Very similar to how I explained some Devil Fruits may be able to demand Haki. Now I wonder, can ships like the Sunny have their own Haki? Can complete inanimate objects like Luffy's Straw Hat have its own Haki? Maybe even poneglyphs have their own Haki. It's possible that the reason that they are so hard and indestructible is that they are in a perpetual state of armament Haki hardening. I'm not yet sure what the answer is to all those questions, but one thing that keeps me up at night is the possibility that the very ocean in One Piece has its own Haki. What if the very sea in One Piece has its own willpower, fueled by its disdain for the Devil Fruit users evolving beyond nature? And the reason that the Devil Fruit users drown in water is because the sea is using its Haki to make Devil Fruit users weak. That's a crazy one. But I suppose we'll never know until the next middleweight theory. That's the theory, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed listening and watching. And if you want to hear more Kuma theories, I actually have the greatest Kuma theories on my channel. So if you have the time after this video, check out my theory on how the Sunny will eat Kuma's devil fruit. See you there, but for now, middleweight out.